Back in March, I had to be creative when I did my registration on my Gumiho because my L-shaped frame that I normally use was set to do my larger pieces and taped to my press. So what I did was experiment here, and I extended the length of the tabs using tape, and then I taped that tape to the paper. So this is just creative problem solving right here, and then hoping that it'll work out. The main issue that I was worried about is you'll notice that my white drafting tape is barely touching my actual paper. So my worry was that the weather is getting warmer, my studio is getting very hot, which means that my drafting tape starts to release on its own a little bit. So to combat this, all I did was I printed faster. I made sure that I didn't leave as much drying time in between every single layer, and I was able to print the piece fully without any tape coming off. So now I have to remove the tape. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it without heat so you can see what happens. So this tape is a low-tack drafting tape, and I am printing on some handmade paper. This handmade paper has a very velvety texture, and a lot of times it does very well with the drafting tape releasing it without damaging the paper at all, but occasionally I need to use a hairdryer. So all I'm doing is flipping my piece over, turning on the hairdryer, and just slowly heating up the adhesive that's on the tape. I have a fairly high heat tolerance, so this isn't bugging me to leave my hands in it while I'm going. But if you needed to, you could do heating it for a while, then turning off the hairdryer and pulling off the tape. Notice that I heated it for a good amount of time before I even started to pull it off, and already it is looking much better. Occasionally it is still pulling up some of the paper, but that's mostly the deckled edge. And a side-by-side comparison, this is the one with the heat, and then this is what happened without the heat. So it's a sizable difference. And like I said, I don't always do this with every single one of my pieces. I see how the paper is reacting to the drafting tape and decide whether or not I'm going to add this step. Comparison wise for the paper itself, you can see a slight difference on the one that I didn't use the heat on, but it's really not bad. I don't know if anyone would notice it if I didn't point it out. Another thing that I could do if I didn't want to do the heat method like this is, because my studio is getting really hot, I could put the edge of the paper that has the tape off the edge of my table, and what would happen is eventually that tape would just fall off. But I don't have an exact time because sometimes the tape takes a little bit longer, sometimes it takes less. I would say most of the time it starts falling off in about 5 days though. Obviously, when I have a time crunch with Mail Club, I can't really do that, but it is something that you could do if you don't have a hairdryer or you do not want to use one. Once all the tape was removed, I immediately went into editioning. One thing that I do when I edition is I do the numbers first because I always get messed up on the order that I am writing. So I go through the whole stack writing the first number and the slash, and then once that is done, I will go back and write the final number on all of them before I write the title and sign it. This will be very different than what you see with a lot of other artists where they lay them all out on their tables and it looks so pretty. I don't have the table space for that, or really the attention span. So this is the method I do that keeps me on track and gets everything done. You will notice that I am using a pencil to sign these. That is traditional for printmaking, and it is generally what you would want to use. It is archival, and if you're worried about someone erasing your signature and trying to claim it as their own, your signature is what sets the value, not theirs. So if they do that, they remove the value. Stolen artwork is stolen artwork. It doesn't matter if it's stolen by another person, by another AI, by a corporation. It still has the value when retained by the original artist, but the stolen stuff, it's crap. Don't let that anxiety make you sign it in pen. Unless your artwork is in pen, it makes it less archival and it makes it harder to... You should be thinking of your art as something that people want to cherish for a long time because your art is important. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much. I hope some of these tips were helpful. And if not, hopefully you like my early morning coffee voice where I sound a little more chill. I've been told it puts people to sleep.